The first warning came as a whisper from the edge of the solar system, an automated distress call from a probe that wasn't supposed to be talking anymore. It had been drifting in silence for decades, forgotten by most, until one day it started transmitting again. The message was broken, filled with static, but one phrase cut through clearly. "They're coming." At first, no one believed it. Earth had grown used to false alarms, to the idea that space was too vast and indifferent to care about humanity. But then the sky itself began to change. A week later, the global monitoring networks caught the first visual, shapes moving beyond Jupiter, metallic shadows blotting out the reflected light. They weren't asteroids. They moved with intent, coordinated and silent. The world's space agencies scrambled for data, and what they found shattered every illusion of safety. These weren't explorers or traders. They were warships, and they were heading straight for Earth. For generations, humanity had dreamed of contact with alien life, imagining peace, progress, and shared knowledge. But what came wasn't peace. It was a mistake, one that the rest of the galaxy would soon regret. The invading fleet wasn't even targeting Earth originally. It was an error in navigation, a misinterpreted signal, a simple glitch in the vast machinery of galactic politics. But when they entered the solar system and unleashed their first strike on Mars Colony Theta, they woke something they never expected: humanity's wrath. In those first chaotic hours, panic swept the world. Cities prepared for evacuation, militaries scrambled to assemble defenses that hadn't been tested beyond theory. The invaders didn't speak, didn't negotiate. They simply erased whatever they found. Entire orbital stations vanished in silent flashes. The moon bases went dark one by one. Earth watched helplessly as its children among the stars were destroyed. But amid the fear and loss, something else began to stir. Across the planet, nations that had once been rivals reached out to each other. Scientists shared locked-down technologies. Old grudges were set aside. For the first time in centuries, humanity stood as one. No one had expected humans to fight back. The invaders saw a young race, divided and fragile. But what they didn't understand was what humans became when pushed to the edge. The first counterstrike wasn't elegant. It was desperate, raw, and fueled by rage. But it worked. A human fleet, hastily assembled from whatever could fly, struck back at the alien vanguard. The galaxy, watching from afar, didn't know how to react. They had seen civilizations crushed before, but this time, the victim didn't collapse. It bit back. Whispers began spreading among other species. Some called it madness, others called it defiance. But one thing became clear: humanity had been underestimated. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to make sure no one would ever dare threaten Earth again. The skies burned, alliances crumbled, and history itself shifted as a single mistake by a distant empire sparked a war that would change the galaxy forever. And as the first alien dreadnought fell into flames over Mars, the world realized this was only the beginning. Humanity was awake now, and the galaxy was about to learn what that truly meant. In the days that followed the first victory over Mars, the world was alive with questions. Who were these attackers? Why had they come? Every government, every research team, every news outlet searched for answers. The wreckage of the fallen alien dreadnought was scattered across the red sands, still smoldering from re-entry. Human engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to decode its technology, pulling pieces apart in secret underground labs. What they found was both astonishing and terrifying. The attackers were not a rogue fleet. They were part of a vast galactic empire, one so old and powerful that its reach spanned hundreds of star systems. Humanity had not just survived an invasion. They had declared war on an empire that ruled the stars. But Earth had little choice. The enemy's first strike had wiped out half of Mars's population and crippled orbital defenses. The message was clear: submission or extinction. And humanity chose neither. On every continent, factories that once made civilian ships were repurposed for war. Spaceports lit up day and night, launching drones, satellites, and improvised fighters into orbit. For the first time, the species that had once argued over borders now shared a single goal: to protect their home. The United Earth Command formed almost overnight. It wasn't perfect. Old political tensions still simmered beneath the surface, but the urgency of survival outweighed pride. Engineers from Asia collaborated with pilots from Europe and scientists from Africa. They built what became known as the Sky Wall, a defense grid stretching from the upper atmosphere to the edge of the moon's orbit. Every piece of metal humanity had ever sent into space was repurposed, reforged, and rearmed. Still, there was a haunting silence from the enemy. No new ships appeared, no messages, no retaliation. Some believed they were regrouping, preparing a stronger force. Others whispered that humanity's victory had caught the attention of the galaxy, that maybe, just maybe, other civilizations were watching closely to see what Earth would do next. Reports came in of strange signals from deep space, transmissions that didn't match any known pattern. Astronomers detected movement beyond Neptune, massive objects drifting slowly toward the inner system. Whether they were reinforcements or observers, no one knew. Meanwhile, deep within the ruins of the fallen alien ship, linguists and AI systems worked to decode fragments of the invaders' data logs. Among them was a single repeating line. The error must be corrected. No one could explain what it meant. Some thought it referred to the initial navigation mistake that led them to Earth. Others feared it meant something far worse, that humanity itself was the error in question. As the weeks passed, strange phenomena began appearing in the skies. Energy bursts rippled through the magnetosphere, and satellites blinked out unexpectedly. The global network struggled to stay online as interference grew stronger each day. Some believed it was the enemy's doing. Others thought it was something new awakening beyond the edge of known space. And through it all, the people of Earth prepared. Families dug shelters, engineers built ships faster than ever, and soldiers trained under the glow of artificial stars. There was fear, yes, but also a quiet determination. Humanity had seen the darkness coming and refused to bow to it. They didn't know how long they could hold out or what truly waited beyond the stars. But one truth united them all. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. And somewhere, far beyond the solar system, eyes watched from the void, calculating, waiting for the moment to strike again. The galaxy had made an error once. Now it was preparing to correct it. The silence before the next attack was worse than the battles themselves. Every night, the skies above Earth shimmered faintly with artificial light as orbital defenses moved into new positions. People could see them now, small glowing trails arcing across the stars, reminders that the war wasn't over. Yet what unsettled everyone most wasn't the waiting. It was the question that no one could answer. Why had this galactic empire attacked in the first place? In one of the underground bases beneath the Arctic ice, a small team of scientists worked around the clock to decode the alien ship's black box. Among them was an astrophysicist who had lost his family on Mars. He barely slept, driven by equal parts grief and obsession. One night, while examining the alien data logs, he noticed a strange pattern. The signal that brought the invaders here, it hadn't originated from deep space, as everyone believed. It had come from Earth. Somewhere, long ago, something, or someone, had sent a message into the void that reached the wrong ears. But before he could share his discovery, communication with the Arctic base went silent. Drones sent to investigate vanished without trace. Command didn't know if it was sabotage, a malfunction, or the enemy returning. All they knew was that the last transmission from the base carried one chilling phrase: "They've found us." Meanwhile, in orbit, the crews of the Skywall defense platforms faced their own growing unease. Strange readings appeared on their scanners, massive energy distortions that moved like living things. Some officers believed the enemy had developed cloaking technology. Others feared it was something even older, something that had been hidden in the solar system long before humanity learned to walk upright. Patrol ships sent to investigate never reported back. The more the fleet searched, the deeper the mystery became. Back on Earth, ordinary life tried to continue. Children went to makeshift schools and underground shelters. Farmers grew food beneath artificial lights. There was laughter, music, and stories shared over shortwave radios, but behind every smile was the weight of fear. Everyone knew the quiet wouldn't last. Rumors spread of strange lights over the oceans and whispers of entire ships disappearing mid-flight. Some said the enemy was already among them, watching, learning. At the same time, a growing division began to form within the United Earth Command. Some leaders argued that humanity should reach out, attempt communication, find a way to stop the cycle before it was too late. Others believed that peace was impossible, that the galaxy saw humanity as a mistake that needed to be erased. To them, survival meant striking first, taking the fight beyond the solar system before the next fleet arrived. Every meeting grew more heated, every decision more desperate. And through it all, a new signal began pulsing across the deep space network, faint, rhythmic, and unmistakably human. Someone was sending a message into the stars again, repeating the same pattern that had started it all. No one claimed responsibility, and no one could trace its source. It was as if the galaxy itself was being called back to Earth, invited once more to witness the wrath it had awakened. As the message echoed through the void, the scanners at the edge of the solar system lit up once again. Countless signatures emerged from the darkness, their formation precise, their intent unmistakable. Humanity had won one battle, but the real war was just beginning, and this time the galaxy was coming prepared. The warning came in the dead of night. Across every command post, every ship, every bunker, the same alert flashed in red, multiple warp signatures detected beyond the orbit of Neptune. The second wave had arrived. Unlike the first, this fleet didn't come silently. Space itself seemed to twist under their arrival, as if reality was struggling to hold their presence. Within hours, telescopes across the solar system confirmed what everyone feared. This was no scouting force. It was an armada. The news spread like wildfire through every human colony and station. Even those who had once doubted the danger now stood frozen, staring at the sky. The invaders were coming in numbers that no defense system could easily stop. Yet, instead of despair, something else moved through the world. It was focus. The engineers, the soldiers, the scientists, everyone knew this was the moment they had been building toward. Factories worked without rest, the skies filled with launch trails, and the space around Earth became a hive of motion. Humanity was preparing to make its stand. But deep within the command networks, the divisions were growing. One side of leadership wanted to retreat behind the skywall, hold the line, and wait for an opening. The other believed in a strike, a direct assault on the enemy's command ship before it reached the inner planets. Both plans were risky. Both could mean extinction. Arguments turned into shouting, and orders were delayed while the enemy kept advancing. It wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. It was a test of unity. In orbit, the crews of the skywall stations watched as the first faint lights of the enemy ships appeared beyond the moon's shadow. Each glimmer was a death sentence waiting to ignite. The enemy vessels moved in formation, elegant and merciless, spreading across the void like a living storm. Human ships took defensive positions, engines burning, weapon systems online. Pilots whispered to one another over open channels, small words of courage before the silence of battle. Meanwhile, in the hidden research base beneath what was once the Arctic, the scientist who had discovered the truth about the original signal was still missing. But his work had not been lost. Data fragments recovered from his last transmission revealed coordinates, something buried deep beneath the lunar surface, something ancient and not of human origin. The mystery deepened. Had Earth been a target all along, or a trigger for something greater? United Earth Command sent a covert team to investigate, racing against time as the alien fleet closed in. On Earth's surface, people gathered in shelters, listening to the distant thunder of launches and orbital engines. The air carried a strange stillness, the kind that comes before a storm. Families held each other close, uncertain if they would live to see another sunrise. Above them, the dark sky flickered with distant lights, silent bursts of plasma as the first human defense lines engaged the approaching enemy. The tremors beneath the moon's surface grew stronger with every passing minute. What began as faint energy readings had turned into violent magnetic waves that distorted communications and knocked entire defense systems offline. On the command deck of the orbital flagship, every screen flickered with static. No one knew whether it was enemy interference or something much worse. Then the feed from the lunar base returned, just for a moment, and everyone watching fell silent. The moon was cracking. A blinding pulse of light erupted from one of the craters, cutting across space like a heartbeat. Every ship, human and alien alike, detected it. The alien fleet halted their advance, their formation breaking for the first time since the war began. It was as if they recognized something in that signal, something ancient. The human fleet didn't understand, but deep in the command room, the analysts realized what was happening. The energy signature wasn't from alien weaponry or human tech. It matched nothing known. Whatever was buried beneath the moon was older than both. Back on Earth, scientists scrambled to interpret the data pouring in. The pulse wasn't random. It carried structure, almost like a message. Hidden patterns within the frequency formed a repeating sequence, one that matched the earliest human deep space transmissions from centuries ago. Somehow, the moon had responded to a message humanity didn't even remember sending. The realization hit hard. The signal that had drawn the galactic empire here might not have been a mistake. It could have been an activation, something buried long ago waiting to wake. The alien fleet began to shift again, but this time their weapons weren't aimed at Earth. They were turning toward the moon. Commanders across the sky wall screamed for authorization to intercept, but before orders could be given, the moon itself began to glow. Lines of light spread across its surface like veins, forming geometric patterns that no one could explain. The glow intensified until the entire lunar surface looked alive, humming with silent energy. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot outward, straight into deep space, beyond the reach of any sensor. Within moments, long-range detection arrays lit up. Something was responding from the void. Something massive, moving faster than anything the galaxy had ever recorded. The alien armada suddenly broke ranks completely, abandoning their planned attack formations. Some ships fled, others shifted into defensive positions, as if bracing for an even greater threat. Humanity had thought they were fighting the invaders, but it was becoming clear that both sides were only pieces in a much larger game. On the flagship bridge, the crew watched as the moon's glow dimmed and the tremors stopped. Silence returned, but only for a breath. Then came the readings. A gravitational distortion beyond Pluto, pulling energy from nearby stars. Whatever had answered the moon's signal was not a fleet. It was a presence, vast, deliberate, and coming closer with impossible speed. The alien empire had called it an error, something to be erased before it awakened. Humanity now realized that they weren't the error. They were the key that had unlocked it. And as the alien fleet scrambled to retreat while humanity stood paralyzed, the truth sank in. The war for Earth had only been the beginning. Something older than both species was returning, and the galaxy itself trembled as it approached. The gravitational distortion beyond Pluto grew so strong that even Earth's tides began to shift. Every radar, telescope, and satellite pointed outward, capturing the impossible. Space rippled, bending light as something massive emerged from the darkness. It wasn't a fleet. It was a single construct the size of a small planet, ancient and silent, surrounded by a halo of fractured debris. The alien empire's ships broke formation completely now, scattering in panic. Their encrypted channels buzzed with fragments of fear, mentioning an ancient name humanity could not translate. Whatever it was, even they were afraid of it. Humanity watched in awe and dread as the massive structure moved closer, slowing near Neptune's orbit. Then, from deep within its surface, lights began to flicker, patterns identical to those that had appeared on the moon. The realization hit too late. The moon hadn't summoned this being, it had warned it, and now the signal had awakened something the galaxy had long tried to forget. The alien command ship opened fire, unleashing energy beams that could vaporize a continent, but the blasts simply vanished into the void. The structure didn't react, it just kept moving, silent and steady. A voice came over the human fleet's comms, not alien, not human, but a clear synthetic tone translated into every known language. Signal confirmed. Humanity active. System protocol. Restoration. No one understood what that meant. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to collapse in on themselves, their energy signatures absorbed into the massive construct. In orbit above Earth, panic spread. The human command feared the same fate awaited them. But then the moon's surface glowed once more, projecting a barrier of light between the construct and Earth. It wasn't attacking humanity, it was protecting them. The truth began to form. The moon wasn't just a natural satellite, it was a safeguard, a sleeping relic from something far older than human civilization. It had been watching, waiting for the moment when humanity was ready to stand on its own, and when the galaxy's ancient powers would try to erase them. The alien empire's remnants tried to flee, but the construct's gravitational pull caught them like dust in a storm. Energy flared, and within moments the sky beyond Neptune burned with silent flashes of light. The empire that had ruled for millennia was undone in minutes. Humanity, bruised and terrified, could only watch as the impossible unfolded. Then, suddenly, the voice returned. Cycle complete. Inheritors confirmed. The light surrounding the construct dimmed, and it began to drift back toward the outer darkness, vanishing as quickly as it had come. Relief swept through the fleet. The alien threat was gone, and Earth had survived. But even as people celebrated, a quiet unease remained. Deep within the command network, engineers noticed something strange. Every satellite, every ship system, every electronic device connected to orbit had recorded a new encrypted code, origin unknown. No one could decipher it, but its repeating phrase chilled everyone who saw it. Phase 1 complete. As Earth's skies cleared and humanity looked upward in cautious hope, the moon pulsed faintly one last time. Somewhere in the vast silence of space, a signal answered. The war was over, but the awakening had just begun. The days after the battle felt strangely quiet. The skies above Earth were finally still, and the stars no longer burned with distant flashes of war. The alien empire's fleet was gone, their transmissions silent, their presence erased, as if they had never existed. For the first time in months, humanity could breathe again. Yet even in peace, the world struggled to understand what had really happened. The moon's faint pulse had vanished, but its glow seemed subtly different, calmer, almost watchful. People began to call it the Guardian. In the following weeks, teams from every nation worked together to rebuild the shattered defenses and re-establish communication across the solar system. Mars sent its first new transmission, confirming survivors hidden deep beneath the planet's surface. The colonies had endured, battered, but alive. Humanity had not only survived an interstellar war, it had proven that it could stand united against the most powerful forces in the galaxy. For the first time, Earth was seen not as fragile, but as formidable. Scientists analyzed the remaining data from the lunar anomaly, piecing together fragments of what the ancient construct had done. The signals revealed something astonishing. The moon wasn't just a shield, it was part of a network, a system left behind by an unknown civilization millions of years ago. Its purpose had been to monitor emerging intelligent life and protect it when the time was right. Somehow, humanity had triggered its final protocol, proof that the species had reached a threshold of survival, courage, and unity that few in the galaxy ever achieved. But the encrypted code found in every satellite continued to puzzle engineers. It spread through systems harmlessly, like a digital seed. No matter how deeply they examined it, they couldn't delete or decode it. Then one researcher noticed that it wasn't static. It was evolving, slowly changing day by day. Whatever it wasn't a threat. It was learning. Some began to believe it was a gift left by the ancient protectors, a message meant for the future, something humanity would understand when it was ready. As months passed, people began returning to normal life, though normal had changed forever. The war had left scars, but it also left unity. The divisions that once separated nations began to fade, replaced by shared purpose. Children grew up beneath a night sky that had witnessed humanity's awakening, and stories of the war became lessons of resilience and hope. The galaxy had tried to erase Earth, but instead, it had revealed what humans truly were: stubborn, brilliant, and unbreakable. In time, deep space explorers began venturing beyond the solar system again, driven by both fear and curiosity. They searched for traces of the vanished empire, for remnants of the colossal construct, for answers to the mysteries the war had uncovered. None found anything. But some nights, in the darkest parts of space, faint signals could still be heard, patterns of light that resembled the same pulse that had once protected Earth. No one knew what they meant, but one truth remained. Humanity was no longer just a small world among the stars. It had become part of something far greater. The galaxy had witnessed its wrath, but it would also witness its rise. And as Earth turned beneath its silent guardian, the future stretched out like the stars themselves, vast, uncertain, and waiting. Months passed, and Earth slowly began to heal. The skies cleared, cities rebuilt, and the silence of peace finally settled across the world. What had once been a time of fear turned into a moment of reflection. Humanity had faced extinction, looked into the heart of the galaxy's darkness, and survived. The alien empire that once ruled over countless worlds was gone, erased by its own arrogance and the awakening of something far older. But the people of Earth didn't celebrate with victory parades or grand speeches. They remembered the loss, the courage, and the unity that carried them through the fire. Scientists and historians gathered to study the fragments left behind. The alien wreckage drifting between Mars and Jupiter became a floating museum, a reminder of the war that had changed everything. The codes embedded in Earth's networks continued to evolve, quietly shaping new systems, improving communication, and even repairing damaged satellites on their own. It was as if the ancient protectors had left behind an invisible hand, guiding humanity toward something greater. Yet no one truly understood the purpose of the Phase 1 complete message. It remained a mystery that sparked endless debate among scholars and dreamers alike. The moon, once a silent witness to human progress, had become a symbol of resilience. Its strange glow never faded completely. Some nights people claimed they could see patterns shimmer across its surface, like faint runes of light, gentle reminders that it was still watching. Pilgrims and travelers visited observatories and mountain peaks to catch a glimpse, finding hope in the idea that the universe had not abandoned them. Humanity had once feared the stars, but now they looked upward with purpose. The United Earth Command dissolved after the war, replaced by something new, the Coalition of Worlds, a council built not on power but cooperation. It wasn't perfect, but it stood as proof that humanity could change. Nations once divided now worked side by side, planning missions not for conquest but for understanding. Exploration vessels, rebuilt from warships, carried humans beyond the solar system again, not as wanderers, but as representatives of a species reborn. Every mission carried one message engraved on its hull: "We are awake now." It became Earth's quiet declaration to the galaxy, not of war, but of awareness. The conflict had taught humanity that survival alone was not enough. They had to learn, to listen, to grow beyond the fear that had once defined them. The stars were no longer distant or cold. They were full of stories waiting to be discovered. Years later, when children asked about the war, parents didn't speak of destruction. They spoke of unity, of how people from every part of the world came together when everything seemed lost. They spoke of courage born from desperation, and how a small planet stood against an empire. It became more than history. It became a lesson about who they were capable of being. And sometimes, when the night was clear and quiet, the moon pulsed softly, as if it still remembered. Humanity had been tested, broken, and remade. The galaxy had witnessed its wrath, but now it would witness its rise. And somewhere in the vast silence between stars, the next phase of the story waited, patient and unseen, as Earth turned beneath its eternal guardian.